Welcome to Baddie, a monthly podcast by For the Breast of Us, the first breast cancer community for all women of color, where we share real life experiences, information, and education to help you live your best life after a breast cancer diagnosis.
Hey girl, hey. My name is Tesha, and I am a breast cancer survivor and Baddie volunteer here at For the Breast of Us, a community of women of color impacted by breast cancer. I am joined today by survivor and thriver Dwan. And today we're going to be discussing the importance of survivor stories and from Black women and Black and Brown women and how it impacts us. So, Dwan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we are so glad to have you here. So, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
My name is Dwan. I'm a 7-year breast cancer survivor. Um, I was diagnosed with, I try to remember all of the stage 2, HER2 negative, estrogen positive breast cancer. I had no family history. It's been 7 years and it's been a journey. And, even now, I still kind of live my day um, surviving.
Yeah. Wow. So, we are so thankful that you and so glad that you are 7 years in. I am a 9 year survivor and thriver. So, congratulations on your 7 year journey, your 7 years of remission. So, and we wish you lots, many more years to come. So today, again, we are talking about, we wanted to discuss sharing stories, sharing our survivor stories and how it has an impact on Black and Brown women. We know that, sharing our stories because a lot of women don't have those share their stories when you're going through or when you have gone through breast cancer and just that sharing that your experiences that has a tremendous impact on how you can get through your journey. So explain well talk to our listeners about how important is it that we share our stories, especially to Black and Brown women.
Absolutely. It's important. As Black and Brown women, we're kind of built to survive and thrive and be self sufficient and
Yes.
just resilient and stoic and just carry the load. And, like when I was first diagnosed, like I kind of went through that, like
Mhm.
the struggle of like, okay, I got this, and I'm gonna get through this, and me, I, myself, like, trying to just carry the entire load. And so
Yeah,
I think it's just extremely important to share stories and let people in because, there's some knowledge and some comfort to be gained from sharing your story.
absolutely.
Not everyone's story is the same.
Right.
Somebody's granny or somebody's auntie or sister or whatever is going to be like, oh, we'll do this. And, it's going to be that way.
Mhm.
It's important to recognize um, everyone has their individual story and you can take from it what works for you or what um I'm 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 struggling with the word, but what resonates with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And it also lets that person know that they didn't have to that they're not alone.
Hmm.
That when you share your stories, when you share your experience with someone that is newly diagnosed or that's going through their journey, it gives them empowerment, it gives them hope. And again, it gives them that support that they need to let them know that, hey, I'm going through this particular thing in my journey. Dwan shared that same thing that she went through, and this is how it could help me.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. So talk to me about, or tell our listeners rather, how the emotional part. So when you were first diagnosed, let's talk about that. When you were first diagnosed, what emotions were you going through or did you experience when you first got diagnosed?
Yeah, so initially I had the whole stereotype of the stoic, strong, um, you know, I kind of knew going into it. So, there's kind of a build up to my diagnosis. I had felt something. I was doing like my monthly self exam and I felt
Mhm,
something a little weird and it kind of progressed over a couple of months. And so by the time I got to like the actual diagnosis, I knew like, okay, something that's wrong. So I kind of like steeled myself and prepared myself to receive the news that I had cancer.
mhm,
So like, I went through the whole ultrasound, mammogram, biopsy, and then
mhm,
by the time the results came, my doctor called on like a Monday. I had just gotten to work. I was going into a meeting, and so the doctor called, and I immediately was like, "Oh my god, this is it!"
yeah,
Like she's telling me all the signs are pointing to me having cancer. So I was very let me put on my face. She called me. She said, "I'm sorry. You have cancer," and I
mhm,
kind of was just like, "All right. Well, what's next? How do we? Let's. Who do I need to talk to? Let's call. Let's set up the appointments.
mhm,
Let's take care of this because I got a lot to do."
right,
Um, so I was very like pragmatic, very unemotional. I went outside of my office. I went in the parking lot to take my call, and I sat there, kind of like, "All right." Um, and then I walked into a meeting, and I didn't allow myself to feel the emotions. So when I called my husband, like I waited until like lunchtime call my husband. Obviously he was very emotional.
mhm,
Week progressed and I started to tell other people and telling my children. It was still very much like, this is just we're gonna knock this out, like very unemotional. Oh,
okay.
it's
And for
cutting out.
me
Okay.
I was the total opposite. I know when I got diagnosed, and when I got the news of my diagnosis, for me it was like a punch in the gut, and I went through all of the emotions. I cried, I screamed, um, but once I got all of that out of my system and I settled down a little bit, and then I just got to a point where I'm like, okay, Tisha, it's time to fight and it's time to beat this. And I had to get that mindset. I didn't have a, it didn't, I didn't have a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to use? It didn't bother me to share my stories, to share my diagnosis with family and friends at first. Well, at first I didn't want to. I kind of hesitated, but then I was like, you know what? This is bigger than me. I need I need the support. And so, I didn't, and at that time I didn't have any issues with sharing my diagnosis with my family and friends, and I'm so glad that I did, because with the streaming amount of love and support that I got. So, with you you held on. You were just like you said. You were unemotional. You were headstrong. And you just
In the beginning.
in the beginning. So talk to me. So when did the emotions start to come into play for you?
Yeah, so the reality kind of hit when right after my chemo port was placed. So I went
Mhm,
through kind of all the traditional treatments. So I started with chemo, had 6 months chemo, had surgery, and then I did radiation. But after I had multiple appointments, got second opinions and all of these things, I had told my immediate family,
Hmm.
and some friends, and of course, my boss and a couple of coworkers. But really, like, the circle is pretty tight knit, and it wasn't like I was on Facebook like, "Hey y'all, I got cancer," I
Hmm.
so it was a very small circle, but even then it was kind of like each time I had the conversation, "Hey mom, hey dad,
Hmm.
uh, hey friend, I have cancer." Like, it was still like that stoic, "I got this.
Yeah.
Um, don't worry." I'm like reassuring them, because I felt like, all right, I got this. So I wouldn't call it arrogance, but it was like kind of a defense mechanism.
So that
Um,
was your way of coping.
yeah,
That was your way of coping.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then after the first, so they installed the chemo port, and then I had the first like dose of chemo,
Hmm.
and it just, I was sitting in the hospital and I kind of broke down. I came home and broke down some more, just crying like, I don't know if I can do this, and like, how am I going to manage work and family and
Yeah.
all of these things? Like I thought I was stronger than this, but it's day one and I'm like breaking down. So I finally was like, all right, this is serious. I mean, not that it wasn't serious, but like, you
The
you know
reality set in, was starting to
yeah,
set in for you.
yeah. What if the outcome isn't what I think it's gonna be?
Hmm.
um so, but I still was very, and maybe it's like the introvert and awkward only child in me, but like I still kind of kept it under wraps.
Okay.
um so not everyone knew. um but the treatment progressed. I had a few months of chemo. This is getting into the summer,
Hmm.
and like, some other things were happening, because it's not like you get a cancer diagnosis and everything pauses and you're allotted the ability to
Life
to
goes on.
just focus. Yeah, so you
Life
still have
goes
to.
on. It still goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had gone through my first part of chemo, and then we switched to a different. Now, if you ask me what the like, I don't remember the medicines or whatever, but I switched to the second regimen, and it was a lot tougher.
Mm.
Before I would like go to the hospital, have my infusion in the morning, and then I go into the office or work from home. Um, but that second regimen, I was like, I need to lay down like
Yeah.
all day and maybe tomorrow too. So that was part of it, and my body kind of shut down. Like, I just wasn't adjusting, wasn't coping, and I ended up in the hospital,
Mhm.
at the ER, and also that same week, Hurricane Harvey. I don't know, everyone in this region remembers that time, but
Right.
Houston was hit hard with Hurricane Harvey,
Mhm.
and I was affected. My family, we lost our house. Everything flooded. We lost all of our stuff, our cars,
Like,
the
that's
kids'
the last
school.
thing that you need to be worrying
Yeah.
about is
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, all of these things can, like, just kind of piled on us. And at that point I was like, God's trying to tell you to, like, you need to slow down. Cause I was still trying to continue my life like, oh, well,
Mhm.
cancer's just kind of just a,
Yeah.
little thing I handle on Mondays. Um, so yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
changed everything. And, I allowed more people in, and kind of let go of the control that I thought I had. And,
Yes.
God was like, you,
Because like you,
you're a little arrogant there. Like, you're thinking that you can go through this, with
right,
just you
that you
in
can go
a
through this
circle.
and
Yeah.
just and we as women of color, we are a resilient group of people,
Mhm.
and we try to handle everything on our own. And with something as big as this, God was definitely trying to tell you, and as He's tells everyone else, you don't have to go through this alone. Why that's the importance of having that support system.
Yeah.
Did I know for me when I got diagnosed, I joined a support group. I had a support group at my church, so I joined that particular support group, and then I found some online support groups that helped me through my journey. But it wasn't until really after my treatments, after I finished with my treatments, when I found this organization for the Breast of Us, because it was an organization that was women of color, but there were young women of color that looked like
Yeah.
me that were in
Yep.
my age group.
Yep.
And again, I'm so thankful for the support groups that I had, but I was the youngest one there. And
Hmm.
and it was like I couldn't relate. The only thing that we had in common was we had cancer.
Yeah.
And just to see someone else that looks like me, that's the same age as me.
Yep. I think
That
you touched on the key point because yeah, there are support groups and it's like, oh, well, I was 36 at the time, and it's
same here.
like
I was
older
36 too when I was
or
diagnosed.
just women of all different backgrounds. And so
Exactly.
to have kind of like that home base, like someone that looks like you and has been through a similar experience, like couldn't ask for more.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you had those fears and those anxieties, how did you cope? What were some things that you did that helped you to get through it or to get past it?
Prayer for the most part. It starts with prayer.
Absolutely.
Even though I thought like I could like I'm like praying for God to make me as an individual stronger, but praying to kind of let go of things and release all of the things that I had pent up in the earlier times of my treatment. So prayer,
Mhm.
making sure that I got individual time with my children, not neglecting them, with my husband. So really, it made my family unit more close knit.
Mhm.
So making sure that that core was strong and solid.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell anybody, therapy was one of the best things that I could have ever done during this during my treatment. I did a lot of because it helped me in so many ways to help me to sort through what I was feeling. And it gave me another opportunity to talk with someone objective. Um, Journaling helped me a lot, and I love to dance. Music was my way of music and laughter. So I would watch movies that make me laugh. I watched old sitcoms that
Yeah.
I used to watch long time back in the day, but then I just fell back in love with them. And so my best friends got me a DVD set. So as I was going through my doing my chemo treatments, I would pop in a video and DVD and watch that. So
Yeah.
those were, some things that really helped me. I had a couple of friends that every week, I had two coworkers, former coworkers rather, that would send me cards every week, and they were just cards that would just make you laugh, and
Yeah.
they knew exactly what I needed, and just having some sense of normalcy. I would
Yeah.
have my, when I would call my friends or when they would call me, I would tell them, I don't want to talk about the cancer today. Let's talk about what you doing, what's happening, what's going
Yeah.
on in your world. I want normalcy. I want to
Yeah.
pretend like, that it's not even that I don't even have it. Let's just have a normal conversation. So you try to make life as normal as possible. And that was one of the things that I did that helped me get through.
Yeah. Yeah, the normalcy, that's a great point. Kind of I think the default is, how are you doing and how you feel, like the focus on the cancer and, like focus on that. But, the ability to have some normalcy, to do normal things with your friends and family. I had a gym buddy who would come and work out with me.
Okay.
When it got to the tougher part of my treatment, each week, well, not every week, but a lot of times I would have friends come and sit with me.
Hmm.
Because, it's like in the middle of the day. So for someone to make that gesture and to
Yes.
sit with you, and
Hmm.
while you're having your transfusion,
Yes.
um, it or infusion, it's been a while, thankfully. But yeah, while you're in your treatment, having that support in person, which in the
Yeah.
beginning I was like, I'm leaving here and I'm going to the office. Like no
Hmm.
one should, not that no one should know about it, but like I'm not gonna make a big deal of it. But
Right.
again, letting people in and doing some of the normal things, hanging out. I did a dance class, and you're jogging my memory. I appreciate you. I mean, it wasn't
Hey,
just
no
prayer
problem.
and me relying
Look,
on
emo brain is real.
girl.
Okay. Even 9 years later, 7 years later, we still have it. So I trust and believe. I understand.
Yeah.
We all understand. But yes,
Yeah. So
yeah,
letting people in and having like doing the normal stuff, like
absolutely.
that was key too.
Absolutely. And I also think too, when you're going through, when you're going through your journey and when you're going through your diagnosis and your treatments, just having that resilience and having the strength, and I think that strength also comes with having that mindset that you're going to beat it.
Yep.
Having that mindset that you're not going to let cancer beat you. You're going to beat it. Yes, it is a devastating blow, but it is not going to take over. And I think that for me that was half of my battle. Half of your battle is having that mindset and that determination that
Mhm.
you are going to beat it. You're going to be okay. Having that unwavering spirit when challenges do come
Mhm.
in your journey. I mean, for you, during your treatment, Hurricane Harvey came.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, girl, if I was to type in resilience, your your name would, your face would, a picture would pop up because I can't even imagine going through treatment and then having a in the midst of a hurricane or going through treatment. There were people that that were going through treatment during COVID.
Yep. Yep.
I can't even imagine that.
I mean,
So talk about resilience.
yeah.
Talk about strength.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest part of my resilience was realizing that I'm not invincible. I found in the beginning that it was just me and like my family and my people like right there immediately involved in the situation. But I think the biggest piece of my resilience was letting people in, letting that armor down.
Yeah.
Um, but trying to keep the kids, I have two boys. They're now 13 and 15. But at the time they were 6 and 8. So my baby, he didn't really quite know what was going on, and my 8-year-old, he turned 9, um, like a couple weeks after Hurricane Harvey. So we're like trying to throw together a birthday party. He was really the one that kind of took the brunt and was like, "Mom, I got you."
Hmm.
He learned how to cook. And then, my baby boy, he was kind of like the entertainer. So letting my guard down and letting other people step up, like not that it that I was trying to put anything on my kids, but like my kids stepped up, my husband stepped up, the
Right.
community stepped up, my friend, like everyone. Um, So yes, I'm talking about resilience, but like a part of like
But a part of
self-awareness
that
and
is,
recognizing that you gotta
yeah,
like recognize when you need help.
when you
And
need, absolutely. And to hear of your boys stepping up at a young age. Mom, I got
Mhm.
you. Mama, I got you. I'm going to entertain you to keep your mind off of it. Mama, I'm going to
Yeah.
cook for you. Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just allowing them to be able to support you in the way that they know how. And I applaud you for that. And also, sitting them down and, not so much, not telling them every little detail of what your diagnosis is, but including them,
Mhm.
including them in what's going on in your life so that they can, support you in the way that they can. Because when you think about it, you're the mom, you're supposed to be protecting them and taking care of them, but it's vice versa. And I'm so glad that you were obedient enough to let your guard down and allow people to support you,
Mhm.
because look where you are now.
Yeah.
You are 7 years in.
Surviving and thriving.
Thriving and thriving. So this is for those that are out there listening, this is the support. I cannot stress enough the importance of having a support group, having someone to support you or people to support you. There are so many support groups out there for the rest of us. Um, so many others that are out, so many other online groups, so many in-person support groups that are in your area. There's a plethora of resources out there that you can become a part of so that you won't have to go through that alone. So that
Yeah.
that can give you that support, that can give you the encouragement that you need to make it through, so that you can be resilient and you can get the strength that you need, because there will be times when you don't want to cook, you don't want to clean the house, or you just want to have a normal conversation. And
Mhm.
you know having that support group and having someone to support you in those ways will definitely help you to cope with what you're going with your diagnosis, and help you to cope through your journey and to get you through.
Yeah.
So I applaud your sons for that. So kudos to them. Kudos to them. So,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about, Dwan. How do you, now that you are 7 years in, sharing your story now, which is a form of advocacy because you are an advocate because you're sharing your story. How hard was that for you, or was it hard for you to start, sharing your stories with others? And,
It yeah, it was in the beginning. Like I said, I'm like an introvert,
mm,
only child, like the whole awkward,
yeah,
you know. So like trying to verbalize everything that I went through,
yeah,
um, that was the struggle for me in the beginning. But realizing that it helps people because again, everyone's story is different, but you can take pieces of someone else's journey and
right,
story and apply it to what to do or what to avoid, or anything in between. After, so my journey was, I guess, maybe like 2 or 3 years. But in the kind of immediate aftermath,
mhm,
I had surgery. There was like a break where, um, in between chemo ending, I had like a month-long break, and then I had my surgery, and then I had a month-long break, and then I started radiation. So there was kind of like a 3-month period where there was just kind of this downtime.
yeah,
And I was just kind of reeling from, we had finally settled into the place we were going to live temporarily.
mhm,
um like I'm almost at the end of like the imminent treatment. And I was depressed. Like it was, you know, I had a lot of downtime.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but so in that immediate, like,
Yeah.
I'm almost at the end of my treatment,
Yeah.
I could talk to a lot of people. I mean, I allowed the support in, but like trying to help someone,
Yeah.
I just wasn't there yet. And even, in the months and
Hmm.
maybe the year afterward, I couldn't
Hmm.
really support anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
everyone
it's
is different. And everyone's different. I know for me, it took me a little while to start sharing. Although I shared my journey on social media, but actually to speak in front of an audience or to speak in front of a group of people, I was kind of hesitant at first. Um, but then I had to, like you, I had to realize that this is bigger than me.
Mhm.
And once I spoke at my first had my first speaking engagement, and I started a church and spoke with to a group of people, and it was
Testimony.
the love and support and the love and encouragement and support that I got from that, made me realize that, okay, your story needs to be told more. And I was, blessed to be able to start my own I have my own vlog on social media called Tisha's Tea Room, the place where conversations conquer cancer. And I do a vlog where I talk with survivor and thrivers such as yourself once a month. And I have on social media as well as YouTube. So it gave me more opportunities to advocate, and it gave me purpose.
Yeah.
It really gave me purpose once I realized that, this is bigger than me, and especially for women of color, because oftentimes we don't share, our we don't talk about our business.
Mhm.
We don't share our, what's going on in our personal lives, per se, especially when it comes down to our health. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And it's important that we do share it because, like we just talked about earlier, how what I've gone through can help someone else, or what you share and what you've gone through in your journey. Someone else could be going through the same thing and be like, oh, wow, I did not know that. And had
Yeah.
you not said anything, it makes, and sometimes when we're going through things like that and we feel isolated, we feel alone because we feel like there's no one else out there that's going through what we go through. But
Mhm.
that's why it's so important that we, I would say, push our feelings aside, put our emotions aside, because this is bigger than it's bigger than that. And we want
Absolutely.
our community, especially women of color, we want this particular community to be to be knowledgeable, to be supported. And so I think that's very important. And for you, who's an introvert, because I would say my best friend, she's an introvert, and she doesn't do crowds like that. And for you to be able to, as an introvert, to dig deep within yourself to say, yeah, this is a story that needs to be told.
Yeah.
Someone needs to hear this. Someone needs to, so that someone can be supported, so that someone can be encouraged and
Yeah.
empowered, and look at you and look at you and say, wow, she did that.
Yeah. And I wish I had sought that, or maybe I don't know how long this organization has been around, but at that dark time, when I was kind of homeless and kind of hairless, and
Mhm.
like I had taken a leave of absence. If I had sought that help from people who look like me, maybe not that I had a bad outcome, but like there was just kind of a rough period.
Yeah.
So if someone can see my story, see your story, and be encouraged by it, and that, like, because it gets to a point where it's dragging out, and you're just
Mm.
kind of going through it, and everyone is around you. You let people in. You got your community supporting you, but like not anyone that is your age that
Right.
has been through a similar situation. Because
Mhm.
everyone that's like, oh yeah, my grandma or my mom, or like there was no one. There was no like
Yeah,
immediate reference that I had.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
And when you're, and like I said, when you're sharing your stories and when we're sharing our stories, being young women of color, we're building a sense of community as well, because we don't want the person behind us to feel that isolation of, well, there's no groups out here that look like me or that's the same age as me
hmm,
that's going through. But when you have stories like such as yourself, such as my story, and many other women of color, young women of color that are sharing their stories, others that are newly diagnosed, like, oh, there is a community out there for me. I can join this.
yeah,
And so, yeah. And so, and I'm so thankful for this group for the rest of us, and the work that they do, the advocacy work that they do, and building community for young women of color, because it does give those that are again newly diagnosed, it gives them that empowerment. It gives them a resource to be able to share and vent and cry and ask questions, and just to know that that you are not alone, and just build and just have a sense of connection and have a
yeah.
sense of community.
Yes,
And that's what
it's
you
a
want.
sisterhood that none of us,
it
a
it
sorority we
is.
didn't pledge
Yes,
for.
we did not plan with this. Definitely a sisterhood that we did not plan to be a part of. But I will say at the same time, I am so thankful for this sisterhood. I would not trade anything for it. It is a sisterhood that I will cherish and love until I take my last breath. But yes, it is definitely a sisterhood. It is definitely a community that I never thought in a million years that I would be a part of.
Yeah,
But here we are,
here we are,
resilient, we are strong, we are thriving,
sharing.
we are sharing, we are advocating, and we are bridging that gap in the African with women of color, because the sad reality is women of color are get diagnosed at a higher rate
Yeah,
than our than our than other communities. And
higher
so
rate, later stage.
later stage,
We're
right?
less likely to
All of
seek
that, all
treatment.
of that. So in order for us to bridge that gap, we have to share.
Yeah,
We gotta have that sense of community. We gotta come together. We gotta support, and we gotta make ourselves aware, make ourselves knowledgeable of what we can do to prevent breast cancer, and also to thrive and survive.
yeah, absolutely. We're advocating, we're spreading awareness, but if you're in the middle of treatment, you've got to advocate for yourself.
You have to
If
advocate
you
for
if you
yourself.
want to get that second opinion, if you want a second scan, or you have to speak up and advocate for yourself, because the studies have shown, like, we're not believed, in childbirth and whatever treatments,
Right.
we're resilient, we're strong. But you gotta see something, feel something, it's not right, speak up for yourself.
Absolutely, because you are your biggest and your strongest advocate. So You need to make, as I tell my listeners on Tisha's Tea Room, whenever if they don't hear you, make them hear you. And especially when you're doing those self self checks, those self breast exams each month, or just if you see something different, or if you feel something different, don't hold out.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get it checked out. Don't wait on it. Don't. And I know with African American, well, with women of color, we like to self medicate. We like to wait and doctor ourselves up. We take care of everybody else except
Hmm.
for ourselves. And
Yep.
we need to start putting ourselves first. We need to start putting our health first. And so I'm just so grateful for platforms like For the Rest of Us. I'm so grateful for my platform of Tisha's Tea Room, where we create safe spaces for women of color to just thrive
Yeah.
and survive and just share
Hmm.
and connect. It is a safe space. And so
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for that. And it's important to also understand too that when you are even you are 7 years in, I'm 9 years in, there is life beyond cancer. There's life beyond cancer. There is. And there are so many stories of women that have gone through breast cancer that are living their lives to the fullest,
Hmm.
that are traveling and just and advocating and just living life and just living their best lives,
Yep.
just living their best lives. So what is one thing that you do, what's one thing that you do to since post uh diagnosis, what's one thing that you do that how you're living your best life?
Yeah, yeah. Just kind of that combination of the cancer flood. It placed the important or the lack of importance on like the physical things.
Okay.
We lost all of our stuff in our home.
Mhm.
Um, so focusing more on experiences and making sure that I'm present with
Yeah.
my family and friends
Mhm.
and reconnecting. People came out of the woodworks like, oh man, I haven't
Yeah.
seen you since whatever. We haven't talked, but hey, can I, there was a meal train, so people were sending me meals. It allowed me to reconnect with people, family and friends that I hadn't seen or talked to in years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's brought me closer to my family and friends.
That's good.
I'm traveling more. We're doing more stuff with the kids. So I try to live my life having the best experiences possible.
Yes.
Um, you know, I I, I don't want to play the game of, oh, well, I shouldn't have done this or eaten that or whatever. This caused my cancer. But
Mhm.
just being more aware of the things that I put into my body.
Yes.
Um, so a healthier diet, exercise, staying active and trying to do all the right things so that I can remain a survivor and thriver.
Right.
So just incorporating all of those experiences, traveling and then doing the fun stuff with the family and friends
Yeah.
and eating right.
I like what you said, creating experiences. That's what one thing that I'm
Memories.
doing, and memories. That's what I'm doing now. Now that I'm post diagnosis, just creating more experiences for me and doing more things that make me happy, that brings me joy. Um, I try not to, because now we have a new our lives is a new normal now. So, you have a different perspective on life now. I try not to sweat the small stuff. Um, I think God is still working on me with because I was all have always been I've been a worry wart. And I think since post cancer, I try not to worry about things as much because now I feel like I have this strength. I'm like, I beat cancer. I feel like I could do anything.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm this superwoman with this superpower.
Yeah. This
So
is nothing.
yeah, I'm like,
Whatever. Yeah.
I'm like, bring it on. I beat cancer. So what you got? So
Yeah.
it gives you that, when you're going through and when you've, come out on the other side, it does give you that sense of empowerment. Because it's like, you did that. Tisha,
Yeah.
you did that. Dwan, you did that. And it just, and like you say, you have a lifestyle change, and you try to do, eat more healthier, you try to exercise, and you become more conscious of things that you weren't conscious of post cancer. So your senses are more heightened now.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I take a bath, when I take a shower, I'm checking to see if
Yeah.
there's anything different. Um, and if so, I'm getting on the phone and I'm calling, or getting a doctor's appointment. I'm going to the doctor and having them check that out. So it's making me more aware now of my body.
You
It's
got to
making me
take care of you.
definitely has to take care of me. I have to take care of me because yes, we are thriving and surviving. So, Dwan, I want to thank you. Thank you so very much for joining us today. This was a wonderful conversation about sharing our stories, about being resilient, about being empowering, and how sharing our stories can empower women of color, can encourage women of color, and support women of color and build community. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And I hope that you were blessed like I was blessed today with this conversation. Dwan, do you have any last words that you would like to say?
Um, I would just like to say thank you to the organization for the rest of us. I followed you guys for a while, and it's just seeing some of the inspiring posts, and being able to be a part of this community. It means a lot to me. So I appreciate you guys welcoming me in, and allowing me to share my story, and hopefully making more connections, and just making sure that we're all surviving and thriving. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, girl, you family. You family. You are a sister now. And for those that are out there listening, and if you are not a part of For the Rest of Us, we encourage you to please become a part of this wonderful organization and our check out the podcast. And we're the Baddie to Baddie podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And also, if you would be so kind to also listen to Tesha's Tea Room, the place where conversations conquer cancer, on social media as well as YouTube. So, with that, thank you again, Dwan, for this wonderful conversation. I wish you the very best, and we hope to see you soon. And for everyone else, thank you again for listening. Take care and have a good night.
All righty. Thank you. Right.
This is another Baddie creation brought to you by For the Rest of Us. Don't forget to subscribe to Baddie wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at For the Breast of Us, on Twitter at The Breast of Us, and check us out online at breastofus.com. Thanks for listening.